All right. All right, so I'm about to do a reading of Shadow Walkers. It's a it's like a fanfic thing that I wrote. It's a sequel to a story called Power Snuffed, and the reason I wrote it was because while the original story was okay, like a lot of I would argue both professional and fanfic writers have a tendency to leave their characters kind of one dimensional. There's not a lot of emotion sometimes, and I thought it would be an interesting idea just to do my own personal take on it. Um, because, by nature, that's what I do. Um, so I'm going to play some music in the background throughout the story, and, just to kind of give it that sense of engagement, I guess. You know me, I'm a big fan of metal, and I would say this story is pretty metal, so we're doing this emo kid in the dark style. Anyways, I say we get started on this without further delay. So, let's go. Bubble sat silently in the chair of her room, an act she had performed for many days past. With her voice and sense of joy lost to the memories of the Townsville massacre 10 years ago, all she could do was reflect. The emotion she bottled up always seemed to cloud her mind. However, with age came wisdom. The more she recalled the events leading up to the loss of her family, the more she realized something sinister was likely going on behind the scenes. After spending a day in her old childhood home where the second and last accidental death took place, she started piecing everything together. There was one individual in her story she never brought up, even to the rowdy rough boys. At the time, she thought it was nothing more than a nightmare, but now she wasn't so sure. A revelation formed and cemented itself in her mind. If him had psychologically tortured her, he must have done it to her sisters too. A murderous anger welled up inside her. Getting up from her chair, she slammed the door behind her as she left the school where she now lived. Brick, Boomer, and Butch were watching TV when they heard a knock on the door of their secluded home. I'll get it, Boomer spoke. Butch would have made a joke about his brother being a whipped sissy, but after learning about Boomer's last conversation with Bubbles, any humor he had left crumbled to dust and blew away. Boomer opened the door to see Bubbles standing in front of him. She was drenched by a cleansing downpour of rain. Hey, hi, Bubbles wrote on her whiteboard. Can I come in? Of course. Bubbles entered the house. Boomer closed the door behind them. How are you holding up? Not so well. What's wrong? Brick asked. Can you get me some more paper? Boomer obliged. I didn't bring it up at the time because I thought it wasn't important, but I think I know why Blossom killed those people. Him came to me in a dream the night we left Townsville. He tried to scare me by showing me stitched up versions of Blossom's and Buttercup's victims. He's the reason I pushed Blossom off the cliff. I know where you're going, Boomer said. Holy shit, Brick commented. Unfucking believable, Butch expressed. He played us all from day one. I have to wonder if he brought us back with the intention of turning us into murderers too, Boomer thought out loud. I came here because I wanted to ask you guys a favor. Name it. I want you to beat him for me once and for all. The room went silent. Bubbles knew about their reservations when it came to fighting. She wrote on her board again. I never got any closure. I don't want him to hurt anyone else. I'll fight him for you, Boomer decided. Brick got up from the couch and stood next to his brother. He took so many people. It's his turn. I'm down, Butch agreed. I'm not really doing anything productive anyway. Thank you. You can stay here tonight if you want, Boomer offered. Can we eat junk food and watch movies? You bet. I'll order us pizza. You're paying for it, Brick joked. Bubbles smiled at Boomer and he responded in kind. I'm glad you're getting your appetite back. Me too, Bubbles wrote. Brick's empath powers kicked in. He could sense an unfamiliar feeling, one he'd never experienced before. It was powerful and deep. Unlike what he felt after their escape from Blossom, this one was entirely different. It was positive. So this is what love feels like, huh? Now I know why people make such a big deal out of it. Bubbles woke up on the couch the next morning. The three brothers had fallen asleep on the floor next to her. It was as though they were guarding her. Although it took the greatest tragedy for them to bring it out, seeing the goodness in them lifted some of the weight off Bubbles' shoulders. Boomer was the first to follow her. Morning, he spoke affectionately. Morning. Rick woke up next. His chest was in pain again. He shook Butch awake to ask for help. What's going on? My chest hurts, dude. Hang on, I've got you covered. Rick lied back down while his brother used the numbing ability he'd gained from the Chemical X side effect. Better? Yeah, thanks. Do you think your respiratory damage will slow you down? Boomer asked. I don't know, but I want that cocky lobster down for the count too. I've got to try. What are we gonna do now? Bubbles scribbled out. I don't think we're ready to face him yet, Boomer admitted. We have to whip ourselves into shape. Be careful. Don't fall for any of his mind tricks. Don't worry, we won't believe a single thing from his mouth. Take care. Hey, don't look at us like that. We'll see you again soon, alright? Bubbles nodded. The brothers flew out the front door. Brick, Boomer, and Butch picked up a few supplies for their training. A thermal tent would serve as their shelter during their stay in the Arctic. The first day encompassed basic direct contact practice, a precursor to their more intense martial arts training. Boomer began drawing up weapon blueprints that night. What you doodling? Butch asked. Question. Now that we know what we're really dealing with, I don't think we have any choice but to fight fire with fire. Boomer showed his brothers his plans. Brick felt his heart twist and his stomach churn. After being impaled by Blossom, he didn't want to be anywhere near a sharp object, but Boomer was right. Their opponent was too dangerous to go in unprepared. Boomer chose a cruciform sword he'd designed for blade efficiency. Butch decided on a double-headed battle axe, leaving Brick with a reinforced scythe. The next day, they found a blacksmith in a nearby country willing to fulfill their requests. They named their weapons after their original counterparts. Brick often found himself wondering how things would have turned out had Blossom lived through the girl's ordeal. A seemingly endless cycle of training, eating, and sleeping took over the brothers' lives for 6 months. They became dead to the world, exchanging their perpetual sorrows for power beyond words. Though through a combination of his strength in lungs and improved circulation, Brick's chest pains and breathing issues disappeared altogether, though his vocal cords remained partially severed. Do you think we're ready? Boomer questioned. I don't know, Brick answered. We've done all we can. I just hope it's enough. I think we can do it, Butch stated confidently. Even if we can't win, we can at least end things off on a stalemate for now. I'll fight him as long as it takes, Boomer proclaimed. I'm sorry, Brick said suddenly. What for? Boomer asked. I wasn't a good brother to you guys growing up. If I would have known how scary shit could really get, things would have been a lot different. Don't beat yourself up about it. It wasn't your fault. We didn't know why doing the right thing was important back then. There are so many things I feel like I should have done better. Maybe I could have saved her. Both of his brothers gave him looks of understanding. They felt just as guilty as he did. Anyway, what's been done can't be undone, right? I just want this to be over so we can go home. Bubbles is probably still waiting for us. I promised her we'd be back. I kind of want to track down Buttercup. It's not fair her life got messed up because of this, too. That's an understatement. I'm tired. I'll see you guys in the morning. Night, man. We'll be here if you need us. Thanks. Brick bundled up in his sleeping bag. I'm proud of what we've done. I know we can't fix what happened, but we can stop it from happening again. We'll fight with everything we have, Boomer promised. Let's kick some ass, Butch ended. The brothers closed their eyes, ready for what the next day would bring. Boomer, Brick, and Butch were ready to pack what few belongings they had when an unexpected visitor arrived to greet them. Hello, boys. Upon seeing their opponent in front of them, they drew their weapons. Him seemed taken aback. What is this mutiny? Bubbles told us everything about the murders. We know it was you pulling the strings. Brick spoke with hatred. I see, so that little brat finally ratted me out. I have to say, it's really sad you had to use a good person to do your dirty work. Oh, please, I was just having a little fun. It was all too easy to corrupt someone so vulnerable. I couldn't pass up the opportunity. I hope you enjoyed it, because it's the last chance you'll ever get. So, to answer your question, this is your doom. This change in perspective is certainly unexpected. Allow me to entertain myself by reintroducing you to an old acquaintance. A portal of flames erupted from the ground. Brick's fury boiled over when a familiar face emerged from its depths. Him was already playing games with them. Blossom's power and bloodlust were just as they had been before her death. Her conscience was long gone. Suffering mingled with the unmistakable expression of rage on Brick's face. Before anything else could be said or done, he brought down his scythe, slicing Blossom in two. He couldn't keep himself from crying anymore. You just hurt my brother, Boomer rebuked. Now you're really screwed. The three brothers charged all at once. In one combined effort, they cut off three of him's limbs. To no one's surprise, it didn't cause any lasting damage. He reattached the body parts and transformed into his true self, the state he unleashed only once before when Blossom, Bubbles, and Buttercup traveled to the future. What essentially started as a ground fight soon ascended to the skies. Him was barely able to throw a punch through the brothers' assault, much less connect one. From city to city they circled the globe, unable to end the struggle armed. The brothers put their weapons away. Brick made the demon feel every ounce of pain he had tried to shove down since childhood. His blows were punishing and unrelenting. The fight was brought to a close when the brothers knocked him onto a beach west of the Atlantic Ocean. What's gotten into you three? The Powerpuff Girls were never this strong. You shouldn't be either. We learned the hard way we weren't invincible, but that doesn't mean we have to give in to a coward like you. Brick stung back with his words. I won't let the same thing happen to Boomer and Butch. Spare me the speech. I may not be able to beat you now, but you'll regret crossing me. Brick shook his head, the anger never leaving his eyes. He could swear he saw him wince. In a cloud of red smoke, the evil entity vanished. Without another word, the brothers flew away. Buttercup, or Sarah as she was now known, was eating dinner with her adoptive father, John Edwards, when they heard a knock at the door. Could you get that, sweetie? Yeah. Buttercup opened the door. Her heart nearly stopped when she caught a glimpse of the visitors. Hey, Boomer said grimly. Who is it? John asked from the dining room. Just some friends, Buttercup called back, trying not to lie without revealing the truth. Oh, excellent timing. Why don't you invite them in? Boomer gave Buttercup a pleading stare. Something told her to let them in. She led them to where John was eating. Oh my goodness, you boys look rough. What happened? The boys looked at their clothes. They hadn't noticed the dirt and they hadn't noticed the dirt and tears scattered about. Boomer made up an excuse. We did some busy work today. We forgot to change on the way here. Why don't you have some dinner with us? You can shower up and I'll lend you some clothes. Thank you. Sorry for the trouble. No trouble at all. The group ate together before John went upstairs to retrieve 3 sets of fresh garments. I guess you never told him about Townsville, did you? Boomer asked. I couldn't. It's okay. We understand. Why are you here? Bubbles told us everything. She hates me, doesn't she? I don't know about before, but if she did, she doesn't anymore. What do you mean? What happened wasn't yours or Blossom's fault. Him lied to you. He's the one who told her to go on a rampage. What? I thought that was all a dream. I wish it was. What do we do now? Without my powers, I can't fight him. Don't worry, Butch cut in. We took care of it. Bubbles asked us to fight him, Boomer told her. We spent about 6 months up north training. We couldn't kill him, but I don't think he's coming back anytime soon. You did that for us? Living through Blossom's slaughter changed us, Brick stated. I wanted to beat him in her memory. Is Townsville still standing? Yeah, the monsters must have been scared to go back, Boomer replied. What about you guys? We have healing powers now, Butch vocalized. I think it'd be a waste not to use them. Was it a side effect of Chemical X? That's what we suspect, Boomer concluded. I want to see Bubbles. We'll take you to her, Boomer offered. Buttercup nodded in agreement. While the boys were cleaning up, Buttercup talked to John about having to stay out that night. Someone I know before I moved to the orphanage needs Someone I knew before I moved to the orphanage needs me right now. She lost her voice after I left. I'll write a letter for your school tomorrow. You do what you gotta do. Thanks, Dad. I love you. Stay safe, okay? I will. Buttercup and the boys searched for Bubbles at the boarding school she was sent to a few years after the murder trial. She wasn't there. She must be at the hideout, Boomer suggested. Hideout? After Blossom almost killed Brick, we found somewhere to hide. Did you guys ever try to find us? Blossom's killing pattern was really unusual. She only killed people we knew. She didn't try to track any survivors down. In other words, Brick interjected, she only killed what was in front of her. It sounds like her brain was being rewired backwards, Butch added. I don't know what happened to her, and I probably never will, Buttercup lamented. I don't want to talk about this anymore, Brick silenced him. I just want to go home. He walked past the others. His brothers sympathized greatly with him. Buttercup was dazed by the strength of his emotional response. What's wrong with him? He had to kill Blossom a second time during the fight, Boomer muttered. He's way past bummed out at this point. We all are. Oh my god. Following behind the leader of the Rowdy Roughs, Boomer, Butch, and Buttercup flew back to the last safe haven they had. Brick went upstairs without so much as acknowledging Bubbles. When the others entered, she showed visible signs of concern. Is Brick okay? She wrote. I think we grew up a little while we were gone, Boomer voiced. Buttercup moved past him and Butch. Bubbles. The blonde girl lost control of her facial muscles. Her mouth involuntarily stood agape. Without without her sister's familiar tone, she wouldn't have recognized her at all. They told me everything. I know it doesn't really I know it doesn't really fix anything, but at least we have answers now. Bubbles wrote on the board again. Did I kill her for nothing? No, you were right. After all that, there was no way she would have stopped killing. It was an addiction. Can someone get addicted to death? If serial killers are any indication, then probably. I'm sorry I blamed you for all of this. I know you tried to stop her. If I'd been a bit older at the time, I probably could have at least lowered the casualty count. I didn't know enough as a kid to outsmart her. No one can expect a kid to stop a cold blooded killer, Boomer finished. She was in a whole other league compared to your typical villain. I'm going to check on Brick, Bubbles wrote. If anyone can help him, you can, Buttercup encouraged. We'll catch up later. The sisters hugged each other before Bubbles went upstairs. Brick heard the door creak open. Go away. Bubbles ignored him and kneeled down in front of him. Please talk to me. I can't. Why? Because I don't want to hurt you any more than you already have been. What happened? Forget it. You can't face something like this on your own. Trying to hold everything in will kill you. Brick sighed. It was clear she wasn't going to stop pestering him until she heard everything from his mouth. I had to kill her again, alright? Who? Blossom. She came back? He used her like a puppet. I made it as quick as I could. Was she the same as before? She had her blades back. I couldn't risk letting her go. After she almost killed you, did you hate her? I felt sorry for her. Somehow I knew without even thinking about it that it'd only end badly. I didn't have the chance to do anything before you guys lost your powers. You really cared about her, didn't you? I respected her for sticking up for you and Buttercup. It was something we didn't really know how to do. She was always like that ever since the professor made us in the lab. She was a good sister until the end, wasn't she? Yeah. Remember when I told you I could tune into your emotions? Bubbles nodded and wrote on her board again. I found out your power is a heightened version of the empath ability. Empath? You know the feelings of other people. It's a common power for normal humans, but yours evolved to the next stage. So that's what it's called. Did you find out something new? Uh, what I What I say can't leave this room, got it? Bubbles made a zipper gesture over her mouth. Brick chuckled. Boomer's totally head over heels for you, and I know you feel the same way. Bubbles shook her head in a vain attempt to deny it, but her face told a different story. You can deny it all you want, but I know what I sense. Without even realizing it, Bubbles opened her mouth. You jerk. Hearing her own voice after a decade of silence nearly knocked Bubbles onto her rear. It was hard for her to believe how much it had changed. Well, well, what do you know? She speaks. No fair, you tricked me. Brick's face turned deadly serious. No, I didn't. What I said is true. But why? Didn't you notice Boomer always caused the least trouble when we were kids? He was the innocent one on our team. After the murders, I think those feelings took over. He wants to protect you. We all do. Will you stop him if he ever tries to come back? We'll send him packing before you can say boo. Thanks. Come on. I think you have a doofus to get back to. Bubbles followed Brick downstairs. The smile she once believed she could no longer wear plastered itself onto her features. Him cursed under his breath as the fires of hell raged around him. His defeat meant he would have to rework his strategy for future conflicts. Until he could find a weakness, his hands were tied. Bad day. What the? A very familiar young girl made her presence known. She possessed a new set of wings and a well maintained silver sword. How did you get free? A little extra elbow grease, she joked mockingly. I've had it. Him charged at the child. Assuming a defensive pose, she prepared to counter. The fire the fire showed the glistening light in her eyes, her mischievous smirk unfading all the while. So yeah, that ending was kind of interesting. Um, I'm pretty sure you can figure out at this point that the girl I'm referring to in the final scene was Blossom. Um, I guess she kind of turned into like an archangel in a sense, like with the sword and the wings and everything. Um, I don't know if I read it in the best way because some of the emotion might have seemed flat, but you know, for a quick little reading, I thought it was okay. Um, yeah, that's about it. So let's listen to the music for a minute. Listening to some Unearth right now. Really good band. Yeah, it's getting kind of late right now. I'm gonna be eating dinner soon, so I just wanted to try writing a compelling little sequel fic because the mention of the bad guy, the villain, him, was kind of left out of the final part of the original story, and I'll probably end up linking the original story in the description. So that way, if you guys just want to read it all the way through or listen to it or whatever, you can do that. It actually didn't take as much time to read this as I thought it would. It only took about half an hour. Um, but yeah, that was just the reading of a story I wrote, and I thought you guys might find it interesting if I read one of my own stories. Um, I just thought it might give the characters an interesting new level of depth. Um, I thought I would be more weepy by the end, but maybe it's because I'm the one who wrote it that I didn't weep as much. Because I sure as hell did when I was actually writing it, like like 2 solid days. I just for like 2 solid days I like jotted all that down, and I was like, oh my god, this is so fucking sad. Because I'm a big pussy, but yeah, yep. Anyways, I hope you guys found that enjoyable. It's getting pretty late here, so I want to go eat soon and just finish up my day. So I'll see you guys again later. And if you want me to read somebody else's story just for the hell of it, I can always do that too. So